listening to episode 178 of the SBP Podcast Mobile Filmmaking, and I'm your host, Susie Botello.
We are Fade into Film.
Hey everyone, we are back with our Fade into Film panelists, and we've got the trio. We've got the three amigos with us. We got Ryan Reynolds.
Wow, Ryan, you got a promotion.
Mint Mobile, by the way. We cut our prices down because lawyers said
You know why I said that? I think it was on my mind because last year on this day last year, I tweeted about that movie that they made.
Oh, and he retweeted it. I saw that. Yeah.
No, he did.
That's what it was.
I don't know. I doubt that he retweeted it. I would have had to pay him a fortune for that, but he liked it. So, anyways, Ryan McDonald, Levi Austin Powers.
Yes,
I still like that. I like that a lot.
And Joey Min.
Yes.
And I don't have a pun for you, but you're just you're the Joey Min. How's that?
Ah, okay. Yeah, thank you.
You're welcome. And it's great to have all three of you together again.
Yay.
Yes.
Awesome.
That was my bad.
No, it was not. There was nothing bad about having to do, work. So it happens. I sympathize with that because I don't do any work.
I can't wait until that day when all I have to do is my artistic, creative things, and I no longer need a survival job.
Exactly right.
Oh, me too.
Same.
Aren't you living your life in your dream right now, Joey?
I think, okay, obviously I'm very happy where I get to work, but obviously me doing it for my stories is really what I want to do, right?
Yeah. No, I understand that.
Like I'm still a cog in that big machine. It's like, I'm not the director that I want to be.
Yeah, I totally relate.
That sounds like a song.
I'm not the director I want to be.
Yeah.
I feel
that's the song we need right there.
Yeah.
Right?
Mm-hmm. We'll all sit to it, listen to it quietly and cry.
We need to message Jason.
Yeah.
Have him cut us.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Jason, write this.
Yeah. Something I just listened to in my car on the way home.
I love that.
With that Matthew McConaughey look on my face like I'm driving.
Yeah. Oh, I love that.
Well, you have, I haven't seen Joey wearing shades yet, except for that driving thing that you did wearing. What were you wearing? Oh, you were driving blind. Yeah. That was blindfolded, right? Or something.
Yeah. It was just like a YouTube sketch where I accidentally murder somebody. That one.
Yeah. That was hilarious. I think I've watched that a few times. You might as well just share it now that I brought it up. Just share a little bit about what you did there, Joey.
I guess I will send a link.
Yes.
There you go. Perfect answer.
Can't beat
so guys, no. So listen, guys, we have some things to discuss together. And one of those things is, what has mobile filmmaking taught you about the film industry? And I would like for every one of you to give us 2 examples, if you don't mind. And because Levi is here after a million years, we missed you. Mm-hmm. Levi, you go first.
What? Okay, that's fine. Okay, mobile filmmaking and what it's taught me about the industry. I would say the first thing is even it's disappointing, but I do think that there's still some stigma attached to being a mobile filmmaker in the industry. So I mean, this one's maybe not as inspiring, but it is the truth. Is that there is still a little bit of stigma from, I guess, people who are further along in their career or people who are making more high budget projects, that they may sort of look down on you. But it feels so good to prove them wrong. So do it anyway.
Yeah.
And I mean that. And then I guess the other thing is it forces you to wear more hats than. And I mean, I'm going to say this because I feel like if you're mobile filmmaking, you're probably making it with a small team. It forces you to wear more hats. And so you start to understand the industry more than, say, if you are working on a bigger project and you're devoted to one task. You start to realize and appreciate the different positions and responsibilities and everything. And it really makes you a jack of all trades. Like I do really appreciate my experiences with mobile filmmaking because I feel like I am pretty good at a lot of things. I'm not an expert at anything, but I'm pretty good at a lot of things.
Because you got your hands in there.
Yeah.
And so you're basically, you have a bigger ownership of your project.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So what was the second thing?
Girl, that was the second thing.
Oh, okay. So basically,
The first thing was the stigma. The second thing was the lessons
that's right,
learned.
the stigma.
Yeah.
It's because we talked about stigma with Joey and Ryan too.
So you want me to find a third thing?
Well, do a third thing, and we'll call it a second thing.
How about we go to Ryan and then I'll come back to me after I think of a third. Okay,
sounds good. We'll give Levi the last word. All right, and now I guess it's you, Ryan.
It's not necessarily about the industry. I think it'd be just about the process and it's kind of it's like simple to say. It's kind of intuitive in a sense to say, but it's just that almost anything's like possible shooting with an iPhone because of the availability. You often say, the camera's right inside your pocket, and so I don't want to be that person who is like the old person going like, oh, everybody's got a camera now, you can do it. But it is kind of like that though. Like everybody has a camera now and you can do it. But I think it's also just if there's some of the things that I learned through making a film with a phone was that shots that I had intended in mind, like especially like close up, it kind of showed me not only the possibilities, but the limitations as well.
Yeah.
And that helped. I know there's some shots that are in my feature film that are close-ups that I'm not quite satisfied with, and I didn't realize what it was until we'd shot it, and I was like, oh, it's the lens. I see that now. And so it's like, okay, well, I would have had I thought ahead on that one. Now that I know that if when I'm making something with a mobile phone, I know not to plan that type of a shot. Or maybe you're going to have to buy a different type of, you're going to have to something that attaches that's going to make it work.
Sure.
And then what I really like is the idea where we can shoot out in public and nobody really notices. Like you don't need in the world of indie film where you don't get permits and you might not have insurance. Like you can shoot out in public with a phone, and a lot of people won't really blink at you because we're so used to seeing people now recording something for their short form social media.
Unless you bring a tripod, you're cool.
I mean, even with a tripod, like there are a lot of people who set up tripods to shoot TikToks.
Yeah.
Wow, I'm surprised. Because, see, that's obstructive. Because that was the whole purpose of having permits. It's because, hey, we need the flow. You're disrupting the flow of what's normally happening out in the public.
Sure.
And a tripod, I think you're kind of right. Like, because maybe some tripods, depending on where you are a little smaller than those industry-sized tripods, So maybe that makes a difference.
Yeah. Well, but you could also, the phone is so lightweight, and now with the software that's already like built in doing the stabilization for you, like you
don't really need it hardly.
A lot of small handheld rigs, things like that, or even just like a pole like that you can attach it onto, and just kind of steady it that way. So that's what I think is kind of like opened up the availability before. Whereas at other times I've been on other films where we've like tried shooting in parking lots of like the mall, and have been kicked out, or we were shooting. There was a time where I could use the excuse like, "Oh, this is a college student film," kind of thing.
I still use that. And I clearly look.
Yeah.
way past that.
Well,
No, anybody can go to college, Joey, at any age.
Okay. Yes.
and though I go that, but it's like, for me, like my age, I'm kind of I'm like well past that now. Like not well past it. So I'm always pointing it, but you're right. Anybody can go to college at any age, but I'm kind of find myself like pointing at the younger people on the crew, going like, I'm just helping them.
Sure.
Right.
Kind of a thing, for a college thing. And so it's really kind of, it's not necessarily did I learn anything about the industry, but I learned something about the art form itself.
Yeah. So
And
for
then
guerrilla
we're
filmmaking,
also-
for the most part, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's really helpful for that. And also because there's a lot of times, like I was mentioning with the Blackmagic camera,
Yeah.
the app, that you can shoot vertical, but it'll still come out horizontal. You can set that setting so that you can really be sneaky.
Yeah,
at that
incognito, yeah.
Totally incognito. Stealth mode. Okay. Is that it, Ryan?
Pretty much.
Those are your two. Okay.
That's my insight for a
I
moment.
didn't want to cut you off.
Yeah.
Okay, Joey, how about you?
I think definitely by doing like mobile filmmaking. I mean, even though I've been doing it before that, the idea of actually just the practice of doing it, I think teaches you more about the industry. That like if we're talking about budget or just skill set, like once you're like in a actual big budget like film, you realize that 80% of people there know nothing about movies. Right? Like, oh, you're the PA for the background. It's because this person just knows how to, like manage
It's
people.
very
People to go sit here and move over here now. Yeah.
It's not like
They hire people for one particular department, and they're very focused on that. You're not really allowed to get creative with any of the other ones.
But certain people, like like somebody, if you're like an EMT for some movie, it's because you were an EMT first. It's not like you wanted to work in film. That's why you were like an EMT for the film. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
so stuff like that. That's what I realized too. Just knowing people on film sets, simply because like they just happen to work there.
Sure. As opposed to like
Being-
are not talented, but are an expert in.
Yeah. Or like, they
Film
actually
or-
like movies and they just happen to be transport, right? So it's not like, like, oh, I'm a bus driver, but I really like movies. It's just like, I'm a bus driver and you make a lot more money driving celebrities around,
Yeah.
yeah.
just that. So, and also the idea of that, when it comes to budget, like, I think like with filmmaking, it like after a certain like budget price for like the production, there's no point in really investing like all that equipment if you're not gonna hire all that those people or whatever. Like I guess there's jokes on like Instagram. You see it like, oh, how come the night footage of your indie film doesn't look like the night footage of like some big budget film, and like you understand that they literally light up the entire like block.
Yep. Yep.
And it's like money.
And then just pull it down in post. Yeah.
Right? It's like, of course we don't have that type of money. So at that point, it's like, I think that with mobile filmmaking, you're able to learn like 95% of actual filmmaking, and then you realize that the extra 1% to make your movie look like a studio movie is gonna cost you like $100,000 for people, and it's like it's not worth it. It's really not worth it.
It's more than that.
To build
actually,
off
but
of what you're saying though, Joey, like I will say you also learn on the fly. Like there was when we shot Paralysis, I had storyboarded there's a scene where Allison's character is in a car and driving somewhere, and then the hag shows up in the back seat. The demon shows up in the back seat. And the first night that we tried to shoot that, we tried to shoot it the way that I had storyboarded it, and I realized this is not going to work. It's dark out. There are not enough street lights. Like I have to come up with a new way to do this. So literally on the fly, and I'm embarrassed to admit this, but I went to YouTube to figure out how to light this at night and make it look like she's driving, and so it like YouTube tutorials, I figured it out, and then we shot it, and it worked incredibly well.
So what you do, if I would have been there, I would have just advised you. What you do is you have a couple, you're all laughing already. You have a couple of people on the hood of your car with their cell phones on.
Oh, well, we have lights. We actually have lights, Susie. We didn't need a cell phone. It's like the problem was we were trying to drive around the neighborhood, and it's like we can't do that. So we just ended up setting up a warmer light in the front that looked like a street light and a cooler light in the back. And it lit the car, and then she had a third light in the car that lit her face. And so it ended up working out great. And she just pulled forward a little bit and slammed on the brakes. But it worked for that moment.
That's a good idea not to have people on the hood of your car for that.
I mean, don't feel bad. I was editing earlier, and I used YouTube to figure out something on Final Cut Pro.
Yeah.
I
mean,
we do it all the time.
You're constantly learning, and the resource of the internet is beautiful sometimes.
And you can do that on your phone. You could actually look on the thing that you're filming with
on
too.
set on your phone.
Close the app, open up YouTube, watch it, and come back to the app.
All right, let's move on to the next thing, if you guys are ready for that.
Sure. Yeah.
All right, well, this is fun. So how much art influences filmmaking? It's a topic that has been rolling around in my head every time I watch a movie. Because we get into this mode in mobile filmmaking. I think it happens a lot. People are just, okay, I can make a movie because I've got a phone. And I've got a phone, it's a camera, and I want to know how, I think the mindset of it, even though people are like, okay, I don't have a regular traditional camera, but I'm going to use my phone because I know there are people making movies with a phone. So I'm going to use this, but I subconsciously don't believe that this can just work. So I need to figure this out. So they go and start looking for, how do I make a movie with a phone really cool? What gear do I need, for example? And when you start doing things like that, next thing you know, you've gone down that rabbit hole. And I think that it kind of keeps you. And so you're constantly thinking about the tech.
Sure.
You're thinking about the tech. But art is very influential to the filmmaking process. And by the time you finally go, okay, screw this, I'm just going to make this film. Yes, story, the story is the way to go. That's the focus of everything. But how you make that story into a work of art through filmmaking. And there are some very unique ways you can do that, even with the phone versus other cameras and vice versa. So I wanted you guys to kind of throw in some examples. I know that Levi, for example, did a lot of creative things in the making of Paralysis with lights and shadows and things like that, so light and shadow in art, say, versus film, what the effects are, because I believe that those are how you depict the mood, the emotions, mystique, the wow factor, mystery, all those things. So Levi, can you share something like that?
Sure. I mean, I will say I come from a very artistic home. My mother is a visual artist. I was constantly surrounded by art. There were books with paintings, with whimsical art. She heavily influenced me growing up, I would say. And I was a studio art minor in college. So art is something that is very much a part of my life. It's and I think specifically, we're talking about light and shadows and stuff. I think, especially with Paralysis is a horror film. And so when you play with the shadows and with light, there's a lot of heaviness. First of all, if there's darkness, there's a lot of heaviness. I remember looking at older paintings, Rembrandt paintings, for instance, where it's you get that beautiful triangle and you really only see half of the face well lit, but they're very emotional and evocative paintings because of
of that.
What's in the shadow, what is lit up. And so that's something that's really fun to explore in film. And I think it can be emotive, but I also think that it can lend itself to sort of the anxiety that we all have, like of what is in the dark, what can we see and what is not exposed. So that's a lot of fun to play with when you're a filmmaker. But I would also say, like, even very well lit things can be very evocative. I think, for instance, if Beale Street Could Talk, which is a Barry Jenkins film, I think it is one of the best cinematic films that has come out in the last 30 years. Like, I feel like every still from that movie could be a piece of art on your wall. So I think, like, with light and like with shadows, like, yeah, you can explore that, but you can do it as well if you're smart about your composition. So I think everybody can benefit from art classes, just because it helps you understand composition, but also, like, I think we all intuitively know things as well, and like emotions are drawn from certain things. So like break the rules as well,
Yeah, I know when I was studying composition, since you brought that up, in my classes, our instructor was talking about the art part of it and turning it into the film process in cinematography. And he said there's the rule of thirds and how you frame things, but you also need to know the psychology when someone's looking at a screen, when you shift from one scene to the other, where their eyes go next,
or even the size of the person on the screen can like, where are they positioned, like are they very small and everything around them is massive? Like, that is evocative, that is emotional, that is like, so it's fun to play with everything in that regard.
And that's the creativity that turns into art, right?
Yeah.
Joey, how do you feel about this? What can you bring into this?
Isn't like cinematography, like light is a very influential part of filmmaking. I mean, I think that's like the basis, honestly, in terms of just the technical visual representation of what you're trying to put out, right? So mastering light, like, like is the way you paint your picture, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah.
think it's
And Joey, I know that you like a lot of, I think I know this about you, that you like a lot of black and white films.
Oh, I love noir, and I think I mean, it's a good way to like learn how to even just to understand how to like bring an emotion out when you don't have the color and everything like that. Just the idea of just like black and white, why, like knowing exactly why you place a light where it is, it's good practice, I think. And actually recently I'm doing this, I guess I'm calling it an experimental film, because I know we talked about it before and you guys were like, no, but like I'm making a
is it the vertical one?
Yeah, the vertical cinema.
No.
It's a vertical cinema with it's inspired
I was like, Joey should put a challenge out there.
No.
We should do a vertical film.
Yeah, here's what I did learn, though, because it is a vertical film. The way that you would frame things, you definitely need less light, and I think it was a good learning experience, just to learn how to
because it's not trying to bring it in, and it's not trying to capture what's around that particular little focus in the frame.
Right. You have to be more I mean, obviously, like the composition of the shot is completely different from what we're used to, but like I'm just saying, it's a really good practice because the frame is a little bit smaller in terms of the way that how we see the world, right? So it's like, it's good.
Well, I'm happy for you, Joey.
It's good.
Like the first
silly
the first 50 years of cinema was square.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
But still,
it's not a long, skinny
saying,
rectangle.
Like, when I watch
Ryan.
Casablanca, like I'm not going like, oh, why isn't this in widescreen?
Sure.
Like,
well, how about you, Ryan? How do you feel about light and shadow and composition? I mean, I guess another thing that we should bring into this is not just composition, but also the depth of field, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I mean, so recently I saw Dune Part 2, and
Oh,
and
lucky
there,
you.
there's almost any moment in that movie where you can, any frame of that film you could just use as like an art piece. And I wish that movies that I made had that same look to them. So I can't really speak necessarily on the lighting in a sense. What I really enjoy when I'm filming is going to be when we say the composition. I would also say like how the characters move in front of the camera, or how the camera moves with them.
I agree.
Depending on what they're doing. Spielberg is really great at continuing that art form that was developed before him, in like the Hitchcocks, where you might use in one shot, you start out as a wide, and then the characters either move closer to the camera or the camera moves with them, and it becomes a wide, a medium, and a close up all in one shot. You kind of do it as a oneer, and one. So there's that, but then also as an art form, film is compared to paintings, one thing that film can do differently is you can juxtaposition shots.
Yep.
And so like when you look at Joey's art, there's I get the sense that there's a purpose from one shot to the next when there's a kick or a hit, or when someone's flying and about to fall.
It's choreographed.
Yeah, but it's also it's where is the camera in that fight, and where's the camera going to be when the person goes to where they're headed. So like for my feature film, at no fault to my cinematographer, it's my fault for as far as the way the lighting is. I was the director, I was the person who was there, I approved it. But there's moments where, especially the end, the way that we do the edits with the different actors, the way that we have actors, the husband is one actor, then we kind of turn away and it's another actor. Those are the type of things that I really like when it comes to the art form of film. Is kind of where we're putting the camera in, and at times where we do just just a two shot. Woody Allen has in the movie Manhattan. There's times where, or I think it's Annie Hall. I mean, the camera's still on the sidewalk, and the actors are 2 blocks away, walking and talking at the same time, and they just slowly get closer to the camera. There's not a dolly. There's not a crane. There's not
the opening of Fargo as well, with the car that's driving and it's really far away at the beginning, and then it's slowly, and that music sort of rises, like it's an emotional, it's evocative,
Yeah. And so those type of things, obviously where the other stuff that was mentioned is of course important. I'm just saying that from my point of view, I love seeing a movie when the characters are just acting on screen.
Yeah.
There's 2 people in a 2-shot, and then we're not doing a bunch of, when the editing's purposeful and not just editing for the fact that like we shot it with 6 cameras and we can edit anywhere we want to go.
Sure.
Kind of a thing.
It's, I was talking to my dad earlier, and he was saying that he was mesmerized by, it was like 11:30 at night, and they had just come back from a theater performance with some of their friends. And he said that they had the actors at the front in the, center front stage, right? And they had in the background, they had groups of people. You know how when you shoot a scene in a movie, of course you do, you have your extras in the back, right? Doing their thing. Well, they were going from one person to another, telling different stories within that same performance. And the people in the background were shifting all very fluidly in the background. So if this actor spoke and did their performance, they were in that scene and they were portraying that in the background.
Yeah.
And he said it was mesmerizing for him.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. And I think there are things I worked on a short film where someone had committed suicide. It was a teacher, and we were in a school. And the cinematographer what we did was we had each actor, right, their students and other teachers and counselors, they were all kind of in a row. And what they were doing, they were having a moment where they were saying, can't believe he did it. I always thought he looked a little depressed. Oh my God, did I even get an A? How am I going to find out what my grade is? Things like that.
Sure.
And what the camera was doing, this was all in one take. And they choreographed it so that they were shooting each person on a close-up and then moving to the next and moving to the next, almost like it was a stage, like a theatrical performance. And I thought the acting on that and the way that the camera movement and the way that the director planned that and choreographed it was pretty cool.
Yeah. I love that, but I also come from I feel like I'm sounding super pretentious this episode because I'm like, oh, I was a major and an art minor.
No.
But coming from a theater background, that was everything. I loved sort of choreographing the things that were happening on the stage, and moving to film like Paralysis. We have a lot of long takes and we rehearsed those over and over and over to make sure that we could get the timing right. And I love that. I love because I feel like as an actor as well, that's a gift. Like when you are allowed to have a long take, it is a gift to get to play out an emotional moment in a film, because it usually is like, okay, here's your short section, hit that. We'll set up the camera in a new spot, So to get those long takes is so exciting. Like films like Birdman, where it's like, these massively long takes and they're hidden really well, between cuts. But like those actors getting to play that is just a dream, and as a director to choreograph something like that is so fulfilling when it works. What was it, 1912 or 1917, the war film, another one that was film was
incredible,
stunning, incredible, so I love when choreography meets, and that's another art form, choreography meets composition, meets lighting, meets, when all of those things are hitting at their top, as much as they can.
I love it too.
It's so exciting.
I love it too, Levi. And I think, for you guys that are out there listening to this, one of the things that I feel is really important to know is you're going to make a low budget movie. You may not find Tom Hanks and whomever, all right, to work on your film, but you can still get really good actors if you look in the right places. And I think actors with theater experience, so, Jed Brophy and Mark Hadlow, who are, by the way, they're judges in our film festival this year. They have hundreds of performances that they've acted in throughout their lives. And so when they were shooting Blue Moon, what they did was they brought that into, because they were shooting that, most of that film was shot at a little convenience store at a gas station with an iPhone. And so they were very limited onto how much they could move around and things like that. So they practically did that because of their stage background, and they were able to deliver a really good performance between the two of them that shared the story that wasn't told. And had that connection as characters. And I think when you're acting in theater, Levi, you're able to connect with the other character, the other performers, in a way that you cannot do it on film.
Yeah, and I would say, to build off that, I think theater, I will say sometimes the transition from theater to film can be difficult. It's been difficult for me because when you're on stage, you are emoting to the back row, but when you are on film, subtlety is actually better. So that can be a challenge. But I will say in sort of building the community aspect, and that's why everybody I work with is a theater actor. Like I don't really have experience. I'm trying to think of all the films I've worked on, and I think everybody comes from a theater background. And it's not to poo-poo on the people that don't, but like there is an element of community that exists when you are in a theater production, that you understand that you are a part of something bigger than you. Whereas I think it can sometimes, like, oh, my name's first on the call sheet, like I'm top shit. But the reality is, like, you really need to be able to collaborate if you are going to really create a harmonious set, like to collaborate, to find the chemistry to, like, and that's something I wish existed in film more, because I do feel like there's oftentimes not as much rehearsal time as there is in theater, for obvious reasons, because you have to have the entire thing memorized at once when you're in theater versus like memorize as you go.
Good at that.
Yeah. I actually loved that. But I do think that, like, I don't know, it feels more collaborative. The theater,
it's more
people.
Connected.
It's
Everything
more connected.
is completely in that moment.
Yeah.
Connected to. It's like the row of dominoes.
Yeah.
You don't do a second take on that.
Yeah, no, you get one chance every night when you're in a play, like, and that's also what I love about theater. And I feel bad because this is a film,
but it's very
podcast.
Connected. This is purposely so.
But every performance when you are in a play is different. Like, one night you can have, as a group, you can have an incredible night and it's going to be the best performance. And then the next night, maybe one person is feeling a little off. It changes the entire performance.
The dynamics.
Yeah, the dynamics are so different. So it's like what I loved about theater was discovering things every night, even though I'd been rehearsing it for months with these people, for weeks with these people. Once it got to a performance, like, we could discover something new each night. And you can definitely do that in film, like with each take, but it feels more like it has to be quick, and you have to trust the other actors that you're with, that they can receive the fact that, like, I'm going to switch this up. Can you respond to this?
Yeah. And I think
Kinda-
a lot of actors on stage also have been thoroughly trained on improvisation better than
than film actors. Yeah.
Joey, I have a question for you.
I think Ryan
regarding
wanted
this.
to say something though.
Oh, yes.
Oh, well, this might kind of drives us off topic a little bit, but I've been wondering, like,
Well, wait.
the last.
Hold on to that then. Let me ask Joey this question. Joey, I have a question for you.
What's up?
Regarding this performance stuff that we're just talking about right here. When you're doing your live action, the choreography and stuff like that, does that also have that kind of a feel where your performance, right, of that fight scene or whatever it is, if the director says, all right, stop in the middle of that and we're going to shoot it from over here on this side, how does that flow work for you, or does it not?
Well, specifically the way that, like, I guess my method is, I prefer people, like, say, like, stuntmen that understand music, like, like they have a actual rhythm, because then it's a lot safer. And besides having, the skill set to be
Predicting.
punching and kicking or whatever, but like having it safely done at a particular beat. Like, I know I do a very like Hong Kong style when I talk to stuntmen, and some of them, the older ones, understand, oh, that's the Jackie Chan kind of like method and stuff like that, where when I'm on set and I'm doing the action directing and fight design, and it's like I would say something like, okay, I want the action like the beat would be like bap bap bap, or like bap bap bap, or something like that, right? And the younger stuntmen, they're like, oh, that's funny, right? But then it's like some of the older stuntmen are like, oh, okay, that's like really old school way of doing things, But yeah, that's just the way that I particularly like it, simply because of like how, I guess, like the action, like Hong Kong style action is different from like Hollywood action in terms of like its roots, with the cowboys being the first stuntmen in Hollywood. So it's more brawly, and it doesn't matter the specific timing. But martial arts, on the other hand, it's a little more specific and stuff like that. So yeah, so I guess also being trained in, I guess, what would be kind of theater in terms of like rhythm and live like acting, rather than just using everything through editing, is definitely one of the things I appreciate more.
I totally get that, and that's why I was asking that. Because it is a performance, and I think that you're able to, I think the director is also, needs to take that into consideration. Yes, you're recording, you're capturing this, you've got these shots, like Levi was saying, storyboarded and all this stuff, but also you're here in this moment. And I think that's where stage and theater comes in, where it's like, this is the moment, capture it and get it, don't interrupt it too much and let it flow. You can always retake it if you don't like it, right? Ryan, I'm sorry. What were you saying?
No, yeah. Well, it was something Levi had said about just kind of actors and one of the things I was kind of thinking about the last few things that I've done, because we're moving so quickly, I've kind of had to tell the actors like I don't have the time frame that like David Fincher has where we can do like 80 takes. And so sometimes I'll tell them that it's like, you've got 3 chances on this. And I kind of have wondered if that's helped them just focus and bring it, because like with theater, every night you have 1 chance.
Yeah.
And if you flub the line, you've got to figure it out. Because there's other times where I've told the actors, hey, this is the only shot I'm getting of this.
Yeah.
I'm not doing coverage. This is the coverage. So if you drop the line, we either restart or you got to fix it as we go.
Yeah. And I've done that too, where it's like we're limited on time. So it's like we have to get this in this much time. So yeah.
And I've kind of wondered if it helps them, if it helps
You pressure them
bring
to
the actors
doing
in.
the best they can.
Yeah,
I mean,
like,
honestly,
dude,
I feel like there are like even this isn't even, I feel bad for bringing this up, but Susie, you just did the podcast with Diane and Allison and Kelly.
Oh, don't feel bad. I loved it.
Okay, yeah. So with Easter, Bloody Easter, there is a moment in the film, and I'm not going to reveal what it is, but I know about it, where they had 1 take to do it because it was going to, like, I'm just going to say there's a lot of fake blood involved. And so it was like, we have 1 costume, we have 1 setup, we can do this in 1 take. And so sometimes there's that situation where it's like, you're limited on time, you're limited on budget, you're limited on costume. You have to get this done in 1 take, you know?
The sunset shot that I had to do for somebody, and these 2 actors were in front of me giggling with each other, messing around. And then I said, the sunset is happening right now. We were done rehearsing.
Sure.
So you got to do it right.
Yeah.
Or it's not going to happen.
Yeah.
And we did it.
Yeah. And I do feel like people rise to the challenge. And if they don't, like I like, there's that other feature that I shot that we don't talk about, but there was a shot in that movie that was supposed to be a long take, and like we rehearsed it over and over and over. I think we rehearsed it for like 15 to 20 minutes with all of the actors. When it came time to shoot it, it got screwed up in the first 30 seconds. And so we realized we have to do this now as you know, multiple
Standard.
takes.
Yeah.
But how can we troubleshoot this, you know? And so like it sort of goes to the creativity, I guess, of the crew and the cast, of like, what can we do now that this plan is not going to work, you know?
More than creativity, that persistent, that passion that says, all right, we're going to still make that happen.
Yeah.
That's the magic that I've had the experience of witnessing, which brings me to loving people like you guys because of what you do. Because I know what happens, you know, every movie that you watch, every movie I watch, you know, like for example, the show Supernatural. Those guys were out there for months, out in the freezing cold, you know, out in the woods, especially in the earlier episodes, because it was very urban legends, you know. And they had to practically live with each other. They camp out with each other. They live with each other. You probably had that same experience, I think, in that film, that Easter, Bloody Easter.
I actually wasn't even on set that day. I just remember the anticipation around that.
Yeah.
And then having just come off of paralysis, feeling the anxiety for Diane. But then Allison gave me the update that it went off without a hitch. And then I saw the footage and I was like, damn, y'all did it. So
It's amazing. I think the only other thing that I wanted to bring up, just to kind of close this up, was the storytelling part in art and film, because storytelling isn't everything. You know, when you talk to photographers, they're thinking about a story. When you're thinking about anything, whether it's writing, music, anything, and how does the storytelling part in art, right, reflect onto film?
Sure.
Any one of you can go. This is the wild card moment.
I get as a indie filmmaker and as an audience member when I'm sitting there watching like a film festival showcase, I cannot stand it when someone has made a film that is everything like visually is there. Like they shot it with the red or an Ari or something like that.
Yeah.
But substance wise, it's dull.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like it's like, yes, we were talking about the equipment earlier. It's like you did all of that, but you forgot really to show
The
us
heart.
anything.
Yeah.
Yes. And it doesn't even have to be because as you said, like story is not necessarily everything, but how you tell your story is probably the better part of it. And so when there's some spy film that it's like they're trying to be $1 million on a $1,000 budget, I'd actually rather it look like Lock, Stock and Two Smoking Barrels with a better energy, or with that same kind of energy, than I would have it be a really dull, doesn't make sense, doesn't like really speak well.
Like you don't feel anything. There's plenty of movies out there that you don't feel anything. Those are the ones that you're like, oh, that's in the background. Like you're not going.
You can feel when the filmmaker is, usually I would say, you can feel when the filmmaker is genuinely attached to the story they're trying to tell, versus when something is derivative and manipulative and a money grab. You know, like I feel like I've seen enough films that I'm like, this is just emotionally manipulating me, you know, like there are genres for that. Like I feel like sort of, I'm going to say romantic drama can be like kind of a manipulative genre. Whereas like, I think if the storyteller is truly connected to, I mean, even a movie, and I'm going to horror just because I just directed a horror, but like Saw had something to say, you know, like it was like it is a movie for entertainment purpose. It's certainly not an art film, but it still had something to say about like the choices that people are making in their lives and the consequences of that, and sort of, you know, like I feel like if the filmmaker has something to say, it resonates more.
And I think the storytelling is the art.
Yeah.
And so yes, it isn't everything. It's just like you're not
It's
concentrating.
everything to me,
it.
Susie. I
know,
can't stand when people don't care about stories.
Right.
Like that's what matters the most to me.
It really, really is. And everything else is just, it's like, okay, I'm going to make a lasagna. You want that cheese, right? In that lasagna, and you expect those flat noodles on it, and everything else in between is just coming together for that purpose. So that when you're sitting down, what are you thinking about? You're thinking about the noodles and the cheese and all that stuff, right? And this is probably because I'm just starving right now, but
I actually have a lasagna in my freezer that I'm going to have as soon as we're done.
Teleport it.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so storytelling is everything, is the whole thing to focus on. And like Ryan said, it's how you tell the story. Yeah. And the thing is that what I was saying before, you can tell the story through music. You can tell the story through your writing. You can tell the story through photography. Any of those things that
or all
bring
of those
out,
things.
Yeah, because there's two things that are happening in the communication between human to human is what forms a connection. And that's why art is so important in that, because you as an artist are expressing, right?
Something that's real.
Yeah. Yes. And something you feel.
Yeah.
And the person who is either watching or listening or however they are absorbing that, they are now feeling. And not both of those things, you know, you're not going to feel exactly when you're telling a story as the person who's listening to your story say, right? But there's that magic in the between that. That's the connection where people get you, you get them, and you're connected through that little string of, I'm romanticizing it, but you know what I mean?
No, I mean, and I will say as a storyteller, the greatest compliment that I've ever received from any of my films is when somebody says you are one hell of a storyteller.
That's awesome.
And like that happened in Australia, and I was just like, this is all I care about. Like this is what makes me feel alive, and the fact that it resonated with somebody else really means something, you know? Yeah.
For some reason, my mind's thinking of like Body Double by Brian De Palma. This story is not really that complex. It probably could have, but like some of these like long chase scene moments that he has are the way that he's telling the story is very different. You know, from like Joey could probably speak more to this on his art form. Like I rewatched John Wick the other day, and again, like the story's not that complex.
Sure. Yeah.
But how they put that
That's
story
not
together.
the point of a story. Actually, the point of the story is to take something simple and tell it in a way that's compelling.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And John
shot
Wick does it.
choices-
I think John Wick is brilliant.
Shot choices, editing, the choice of when to edit are all part of that.
Because do you guys feel like the
obviously-
execution of telling a story is also, because like I know you guys are like, you know, you're obviously we're talking about like how to, the story is important, but like you could also kind of see it in like in those films where I guess I call it like lazy filmmaking. Like they have a story to tell, but it's like, do I really need to have, you know, like a, you know, like 2-minute static shot of some guy in a car, like, you know, driving in a car when he's, you know, talking to the guy that's next.
It has to have intention.
Yeah,
the things to build the story, you should have intention. You don't need to have, like, for example, one of the things in cinematography is like, you know, somebody leaves and they go to their car. You're not going to follow them all the way down the stairs and then watch them stop at the restroom. I mean, nobody cares about that.
But I will say, Joey, with what you're saying, with the question that you posed, like, there's a shot, like, I think, and it builds off of what Susie was saying. If there's intention behind it, I think those shots celebrate and amplify the
I'd
story.
Even take it if the intention is the director to piss me off. Like I'd take that.
Yeah, like if it was like if it was a style,
I'd
no, definitely, I agree with that completely. But I'm sure you guys seen films like, and I'm not talking about, obviously, I'm not talking about like, you know, how like studio films, but even like just, you know, like indie films that people made, but it's obviously like there's it feels like it lacks the love and care and attention.
Sure.
And I guess because like I guess okay, well, I would like to ask a question to the group then, right? Since we're talking about this and we're talking about the visual and the story, like what do you guys feel is and since we're doing this on mobile filmmaking, and I think, you know, I guess what did you guys take is the bare essentials of filmmaking. You know what I mean? Like how to make like a good film, like the bare essentials.
I mean, I would say a decent understanding of how to execute it would be part of it. I think but I do think story is one of the highest pillars. I think. Are you telling a story that an audience can resonate with?
But if a director or somebody cannot execute like how to tell that story well, can you even say that, oh, the movie is good because the story is amazing?
If I can sense the artist's intention and the film is not great, it's not, you know, they're maybe not the artist to tell that story, but if I sense their intention, I can recognize, oh, this aspect of this film is doing what it needs to do. Like it's still resonating because XYZ, you know? Yeah. Whereas like maybe you weren't the director for that. Like I've seen plenty of films. Into the Woods, the musical. That director completely missed the mark. He did not understand the themes of the film. However, there are moments in that film that I can sense the intention behind it, and I'm like, this resonates, you know?
I feel like I feel like whatever I'm saying is the same thing you guys.
Is it not the same thing that I'm saying?
But Joey, you were trying to say something earlier, and
well, I guess what I mean by like, you know, I guess what I mean by lazy filmmaking is that like, how do I explain this? Because like obviously like I guess I had this talk with somebody recently, and like how do you actually like who can really grade a film, right? Like if there was a standardized thing.
Yeah.
Right? So I
Yeah.
was saying like, well, I guess it's because like I can't, it could be like I can't judge someone's story or something like that. But if we were to just like basic tenets of like what makes a good film, could I say like shot composition and shot progression, right? Like that seems like a very simple
Sure.
technical thing. If like
So,
Yeah.
so remember when I said earlier that the artist, right, has an intention, right? They're expressing this particular thing. And the person that receives that, they have their own impression
Yeah.
of it, right? They feel their
Yeah.
own thing.
Does it
That's-
resonate with them?
Exactly. And
Yeah.
that's because you're not going to okay, so when you're a filmmaker, you don't show your film just to filmmakers. You
Yeah.
want everybody and their brother. And if you get a carpenter or a plumber that just loves your film, that it's based on nothing that they have any connection to, that's the magic right there.
Yeah.
That's the magic.
Does your
That's-
film resonate?
Exactly. And it's not about
I agree.
judging it. It's about feeling it and saying,
Yeah.
God, I feel something, and it makes you feel alive because we
Yeah.
have a life that we're all living that it can get monotonous in so many ways. And you
Yeah.
stop and you watch a movie or you're having a crazy day and there's a theater right there and you're like, I'm going to just go in there and watch this film. And that is such a great thing if you watch that film and it just totally changes you, even if it's only
Yeah.
for that minute. I know I'm very passionate about this.
No,
whole
I feel
thing,
exactly
so.
the same way though.
So I think that's
Yes.
the answer.
because like
to that,
I'm also
Bill.
very passionate about film, right? So that's the idea where it's
Yeah.
like when I really dislike what I call like lazy filmmaking, like I
Right.
like, oh, I get it, she this character needs to get to point A to point B, but do we really need to see like all of that? Like
Yeah.
when
Right.
it's just like she's just walking, but then it's not even like the shot composition of this character walking isn't even like there's like a
Yes.
million head space for some odd reason because the person doesn't want to use a tripod or something.
I mean, I feel like there's something that exists, especially in American film, where, and I'm just going to use this as an example, but like transitional shots are sort of kind of stock footage, and it doesn't do anything to
like the establishing shot.
yeah. Whereas
Yeah.
like you have a filmmaker like Edgar Wright who uses
Yes.
every frame to
Yes.
tell the
Yes.
story.
Mm-hmm.
And I have so much respect for filmmakers like that because it's like you have found a way to creatively tell me more about this character even in the transitions, and so yeah, I agree with you. I think there are a lot of movies where it's like I don't need this. Cut that out. Like just tell me the story, like or at least tell me it in a compelling way where it's giving me more information as an audience
Right.
member,
Create
Yeah.
art.
Show you a wide shot with the Eiffel Tower, and they're like, and then title card comes up.
Yeah.
Paris. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah,
it's like great. Could
Thanks.
have figured that out. Like didn't need the title card. Like yeah.
Well, that's the whole point, right? From the beginning, it was like you get stuck in the technology and
Yeah.
in the process technically, right? And then you forget, the art part. The
Yeah.
art part is from the heart.
Yeah.
So here's a question: has a movie ever been so good that when it ended, you cried?
Oh yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
So many times.
For me, it was Everything Everywhere All at Once. I cried. I've saw that movie so many times. I cry every time I see it. It's a brilliant film.
Like not cried like in the film, like during the film.
Sure,
like
but at the
when it-
end,
No, yes.
when it ends and
When
it
it
like
ends.
cuts and it's just like and it's like directed by so and so, and you're kind of like, wow, like that was the film. Yeah.
I actually did that during Hamilton, and I'm embarrassed to admit
Oh.
that, but Hamilton made me cry like that at the end. The thing ended, and I was with my ex, and he was like, "What?" And I just started sobbing.
Wait, it ended, then he was like, what? And that made you cry?
Have you seen it, Joey?
I've never seen Hamilton.
Just
It's a musical.
spoiler alert, at the very, very end, it's been following Alexander Hamilton the entire time. And at the very end, he passes away and you sort of get the last bit of the story through the wife. And then she looks at the audience and she gasps. And that's the end of the play. And my ex did not understand. He was like, what? And for me, it resonated because it was like the entire story was her story. It was not Alexander's story. It was her story. And so like she realized in that moment, and I'm getting emotional right now, but she realized in that moment that it was about her. And it's so powerful. And I sobbed for 10 minutes and my ex just did not understand. And that's why we're exes.
No, and this is what Ryan was talking about earlier with the magic.
Yeah.
You know you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the magic of the film. It's not something you can put your finger on most of the time. And especially and you can do this with a short film. You could do it with a feature-length film. I think we feel it more intense when it's a feature film because you have more time.
Yeah.
You know, you're living this.
Yeah.
But that's the movie magic is that you are creating something that you are putting, and this is the drive that a lot of filmmakers have when they're kids, right? That they grew up watching films that did that for them. And they want to do that themselves. They want to do that for others. You know, filmmakers, for the most part, I know it's in the Hollywood industry and things like that, we tend to think of them as money and all this stuff. But their intention is to tell a good story and to move their audience. And they really take that to heart. You know, that is their purpose. Yeah. And I'm talking about the directors. I'm not talking about the lighting grip guy or anything like that. But I think when they are able to communicate that to their team, they get a much better result because everybody connects and everybody works really hard and they feel that and they will go the extra mile to make every little element pull that through.
Yeah.
So I think this is a great way to end it.
I mean, I posed the question, so I'll share.
Yeah.
Magnolia was one of the films where when it ended,
that you cried.
I thought it was so well made.
Okay.
I
haven't seen it.
Is
so
that
I'll
the
have
one
to
with the
watch
raining
it.
frogs?
Yeah, and I can't say I don't know. It's been a minute since I've seen it. So like Paul Thomas Anderson's done so much since then.
Sure.
At the time though, like I was Boogie Nights is like top 5 for me in like films. And so I was such a big fan of that. So I was really excited to see Magnolia when it came out. And then when it ended, I just thought, especially when we're speaking of like editing and shot composition, as far as like how the characters are and the camera is moving, like when it ended, I was kind of crying because I was like, wow, that was a movie that I hadn't seen like that before.
Yeah. You're like, bravo, right?
Yeah.
I think Jojo Rabbit was another one for me, actually. At the very end, I cried just because I was like, this was such a brilliant piece of film.
We do that. We do that as artists. We see things from our heart. Our eyes are our hearts. And so we really feel things in a way that a lot of people can't understand, which is why we have that need to express something.
I think filmmakers are so empathetic. I do.
Yes.
I feel like you have to have empathy in order to be a filmmaker. You know,
Narcissistic and empathetic.
Yeah. Narcissistic but with an insane amount of empathy.
Well, I don't know about anybody, but there's a part of me that sometimes like in life, I'm like, I'm telling people, telling the kids, telling somebody, and it's just like, it's like the directing side.
Yeah.
Kind of like coming out, and it's kind of like, no, you have to say it, like, just do this. And then it's like, okay, like reel it in, like this isn't.
Go order the fries for me, but do it like this.
Yeah. Did you say this? Did you say that? Did you say the way I said it?
Yeah.
So that's where I go like, okay, that's kind of narcissistic, but then at the same time, I do feel empathetic.
No, I feel like it's an odd balance of empathy and narcissism,
right? Because we have to feel somebody else's feelings for us to actually convey our narcissistic thoughts. Yeah, exactly. I get it.
Yeah.
But that comes from us, from the time we are very, very little. When you're wondering, at least I was, do these grown-ups, when they cry, do they feel the same sadness that I feel when I cry?
Sure.
You're having that little conversation with yourself. How do I know they're real? because I can feel myself. If I hold my hand, I feel it. When I feel sad and my parents are looking at me going, "Stop crying. That's not even that's not even real." And I'm thinking, are they real? You know? So,
you all laugh at that, but I legit talk to my therapist about that exact same thing probably once a month, where my mom would look at me and say, "Stop that fake crying." And I was like, no, you don't. Like, now as an adult, I can go, "That's not, it was real. It's okay." You know? Like, yeah.
I laughed with empathy. That was
Thank you, Ryan. Well, Joey laughed with malice.
Because you were laughing, we're laughing
Like,
with
what
you.
a crying baby.
It's I don't know, the thought itself, it's like, not the, obviously trauma is terrible. I agree with that. But the thought of like, it's like, stop crying. It's not real. It's like, are you real? And I see like a child version of Susie saying that to her fans.
Oh my God, 100%.
That's what I was
She was an
laughing at,
obstinate
too.
little girl.
Like an odd thing to like question her own reality with her parents.
Yeah.
That's here.
All right, everybody. Say goodbye to our listeners.
Goodbye. Until next time.
See you guys next time.